First topic, we'll talk about just lead basics. So lead sourcing, scraping, enriching, how we do it, why we do it, what it does for us and what it can do. Sourcing and scraping is pretty basic. The biggest fundamental that most people use is Apollo. And the way Apollo and a lot of the alternatives to Apollo pull their data is LinkedIn. And the reason is that LinkedIn has the most comprehensive profiles for lead data generally. However, not everyone's going to be on there. So you might have a city where you have, a ton of the tech companies, like very condensed, mostly on Apollo. That might not be the case for SMBs. So there's alternatives you can do, which is things such as Google Maps scraping and Yellow Pages. But can anyone maybe come up with an idea of why Google Maps scraping or Yellow Pages might initially be a problem when you get the raw data compared to getting it from Apollo, which is a LinkedIn data? Other than Danae, don't answer Danae.
I'll just take a shot in the dark and maybe say, because you'll get like the business information as opposed to the individual information.
That's exactly it. Yeah. So you'll usually get sometimes pretty useful business info, right? So you might get like the business name, the location, city, opening hours, all those random shit. Maybe if you're lucky, you'll get an owner name, but very often you won't get an email, or you'll get an info email, like a generic inbox. You won't get the titles of the people. So it makes it a lot harder to target or mention who they are when you're reaching out to them. So you need to enrich them at that point. And the way you can do that is by either going back to Apollo itself and using it as a third party to basically enrich, or you can use AI to kind of scrape the website and try to find data there. Not the best way to do it. It works in specific niche cases, but Apollo is usually, or LinkedIn Navigator is usually still a better way to find the lead basics and go from there. There's also other sources we can use that have used before. For example, Construct Connect. Really any place that you can, at the very least, get like a full name of the client if possible, business, a LinkedIn URL, or an email if possible. The rest can be attempted to be enriched. So if we can find those things, then we can either scrape the website for more info, using AI to throw it in the column and clean it up, or putting that back into Apollo, because there might be niche cases where, yeah, you could have found that client if the parameters were all correct in Apollo, but at times Apollo can actually have the incorrect industry or parameters. So business might still fit in. Does that all make sense on the sourcing and scraping end? That's the gist of sourcing and scraping. There's not too much to it that's relevant to you guys. Joel, Mike, any questions on that?
Optimizing is like making sure you're seeing the right patterns. So when you go to source, you're not having to enrich as often. Is that what that means? Like you're fine tuning your sourcing?
We'll get there. I'll talk about that at the end. So we'll go to the first step of enriching. There's generally multiple enriching steps. So enriching can mean a lot of things, right? The next part is enriching, which there's two steps to enriching. The first part is you have to get the very basic info of a client, like we just talked about, before you clean it up. So say you do Google Maps scrape, you don't have an email yet. Enriching or cleaning and verifying primarily targets the email. If you don't have an email, there's nothing to verify or clean, right? So once we have the basics that we require to be able to basically do outreach to that lead, then we'll do our first verifying or cleaning step, which is making sure that email is actually functional. And what that means is that we're running it through a program that ensures that email is valid. So it wasn't somebody who left the company 2 weeks ago, it got deleted and it's just going to go in a loop and get sent nowhere. Or it's a catch-all, which a catch-all is you can set up your infrastructure so that any email that gets sent to your domain, so at forgestrategy.ca, will go to a catch-all, which means it gets caught. And then if the routing is set up, it'll get received to, if it goes to whatever, ABC at Forge Strategy, I can make it so it gets sent and filtered to my inbox. The problem is, depending on the routing, that can mean it either gets sent somewhere or it can get auto-blocked. So it's like a door that's there, but you have no idea if there's a lock on it or not. And anytime you get a bounce, which means the email gets rejected, it really affects your email health negatively, because nobody who organically sends, like none of you guys, would send and get bounces at a high rate. Usually you email someone who's emailed you or someone that you know. So when you get a lot of bounces triggered, so it's saying the email can't be found or your email was rejected, the backend essentially sees that you're trying to send either to a bunch of people that you have no idea who they are and you're getting deflected, or you're not cleaning your lists, which means you risk your email health very, very quickly. So cleaning is very, very important. And when we can, we'll actually use 2 different platforms to clean, because it's worth paying more money to avoid hitting emails that result in bounces, which hurt our email longevity. Tristan?
Can you share your screen today and just show them quickly what that program looks like?
Which one, Million Verifier or Instant
Any of
Verifier?
them, what it looks like to upload leads and then what the end result is. I think you're just going to let them.
So the reason, Tristan, it almost doesn't even matter is because when you do it through Instantly, you basically just upload them to Instantly, and it will just verify them within Instantly and tell you valid, good to send, invalid, bad to send.
I think just for memory's sake, having a visual is going to help them remember.
Sure. Yeah, maybe show million verifier because it's
Yeah, I will.
more useful.
Okay. So this is kind of what it looks like. You can see that there's good, which is obviously fine to send. Risky is broken out into catch-all or unknown, and then bad is invalid or disposable. Different industries have obviously different rates of what is good or bad. And then in Apollo 2, hold on, sorry, I'm just going to switch my screen here. What we try to get the leads from, if you can see email status, is we're able to select like verified, unverified, user managed, or unavailable. You can also turn on catch-all emails. So I always turn it off if we have a large lead pool, because most of the time then the emails, once we do verify them, actually do come back verified. As opposed to if you have that off, you'll get a lot of catch-alls, and then when you clean them, they still come back as catch-alls. So that step, and then obviously million verifier. And then if you want, I can show instantly, but there's nothing really that you can see in that end.
Instantly's fine.
That'll do. So generally we'll want to send to verified as much as we can. Catch-alls can be useful because, as you guys saw, sometimes you'll have 40% catch-alls, which means if you just miss those, you automatically lose a massive number of leads that you just pulled, and your pool gets much smaller. But you have to be careful with them. And there is ways that some third parties can semi-verify them. And what they do is, like I mentioned to you guys, you know, just the way the SMTP works, they can't verify if it's an email or not. But what they do is they'll plug that email, for example, into Gmail or into Microsoft like email login. And if it says password incorrect, then they assume, oh, there actually is a login here. The password was just wrong. Because if the email didn't exist, it would have said this account doesn't exist. That's just one of the 20 things that they do to try to see, okay, does this email exist somewhere as a login that we can find, which gives you a somewhat higher verification chance. And if we can get it pretty high, like 80-90%, then they're fine to send. Some bounces are okay. But if we get more leads and the bounces end up being 40%, it's not worth it because it deteriorates your email health so much that it's not even worth getting the extra leads.
On that note, I do occasionally use Sparkle, which is a catch-all email verifier. So if I do get catch-alls, now I know we're moving into Instantly. Instantly only has verified or invalid. It doesn't split it out into catch-alls, but there are like catch-all verifiers that we use as well to check those ones.
And I think Instantly actually does it too tonight. They just don't split it out for you. They just tell you it's valid. So anyway,
So, Joel, do you have any questions? Do you guys know the difference between verified and catch-all?
Yes, this is all making fine sense. I think Clay, though, if I'm correct, you would consider Clay is a enrichment
we'll get there.
platform, right?
Both. Can do both. Yes.
Right. Continue.
So once this part is done, this is when we get the platforms like Clay. Because now you make sure that those emails are actually valid, they're worth enriching, because every enrichment step costs money, right? Like any cell that you enrich to some extent, you're going to be paying some third-party platform to enrich that. It's not going to be free. If the email is invalid, you're not going to waste money adding tertiary things that you need for the sending pattern before you've actually confirmed that the email is worth sending to. So now if you want to enrich it extra, you would go back into Clay. And that's essentially what enrichment is like, it's appending third-party data to get details such as firmographics, technographics, demographic details to your lead list to get a fuller picture. And you use that fuller picture to send, to either just have better data when you're sending that you can disseminate, so knowing the company sizes, where they are, whatever, or being able to use those variables in your sending. So Joel, for example, if we could pull a lead and pull off of LinkedIn, generally via Clay in a workflow, there'd be a column that's enriching, pulls off LinkedIn, and it might pull data. How long have they been at their most recent company that they're still at? And then in the copy, you might be able to add, you would add a field in Clay, which works just like Excel, essentially on steroids, that says, if at company over 2 years, then say, hey man, you've been at this company for over 2 years. With that, I'm sure you're now getting into the sales portion of the business. Can we help you with that? Or if they've been there for 5+ years, you might say something else. Is that going to make sense? So that's when you can start personalizing. And that's a very simple way of doing it. You can also go much deeper and have AI scrape their LinkedIn, find a post, how long they've been, their last job change. It can find the values on the company or pull up a case study of theirs. This stuff gets very expensive and it's not very easy to do. If you don't do it very well, you get minimal increase in results and your cost skyrockets. So it has to be done very intentionally and tested very carefully.
So really quick, Joel. Sorry, this might answer your question. You see the she here? If we have the company name here, we can add an enrichment where it's like find a website based on company name. So then you can make this column the website, and then you can basically have it use one of these existing columns, like the company name, to find the website. So that all gets placed in that column. And then you can add another column that is, once you have the website, like find business owner name on website. And then you can automatically have it on that column based on the website. And then based on the business owner's name, you can find more information. See how that works?
Yeah, you're like unlocking doors.
So it's a flow. It's like this column will find this info to add to this next column, to add to this next column. And then that's why they call it a waterfall.
And these can get very, very large and complex to do well. So like setting up, and they're all very individualist, right? Depending on what they are. So if you do get Google Maps scrape, you might need to have AI run to the website. You give it a prompt that says, try to find all the names people mentioned on the website and try to find the title that's associated with them and an email if possible. It's going to run that flow. If it returns no, then you're going to want to stop the later parts of the flow. And once you find that stuff, like such as the name and the title, now you're going to have to do something else to be able to find that email, which might be another platform, right? That you can throw that name in, or you can throw their LinkedIn URL in. So
I think this is a really good example, guys. If you can see the top left here, you get the name of the person from the Google Maps URL, and then they give you the description, then you find the website, then you find the company owner, and then it moves over to the first name of the company owner. And from that, they find the work email, and then they validate that. If that work email isn't valid, it moves over to find another email. And then if that isn't valid, it finds it through other scrapers and just keeps going until
validates it and so on. Yeah. The problem is it's very expensive. So it has to be a use case where we either need more leads or it adds a ton of value to have the specific info because those leads aren't targetable. Obviously, leads that we find through tertiary methods like this are better than the ones that we find through Apollo. The reason being, it's like going to a house that nobody ever knocks on. They're not going to be pissed because they don't get phone calls. You're the first person they've seen in 3 years. They're probably lonely. They'll answer your email. Right.
It's like cold calling Canada versus the US.
But yeah, expensive. And if the results aren't significantly better, our lead cost can like go from 2x to 10x higher, which could be very expensive for us, right? If the lead costs 50 cents, it doesn't really make it feasible at scale. So long story short, it's good for a lot of processes. Even outside of enrichment, Joel, it's good also for validation. So it can do very simple tasks for you. Like if we want to validate through Million Verifier that Danae showed us, or instantly, instead we can have a basic table in Clay that also runs those enrichment pieces and then verify something else. And then make sure the email isn't like a info@email. If it is, it flags it and it pushes it to instantly. There's a lot of cool you can do with it. It just takes a lot of time and it has to be done tastefully. So just be careful about promising clients we can do personalization for them because it takes a lot of time to do, especially at this level.
Does the, like, obviously when you're kind of building these leads or enriching them in Clay, like there's copy or messaging. Does it come with copy or do you have to then build, like I saw there was copy, like you're still responsible to have a copywriter go in and.
That's right. So what you would generally do is you have a basic copy framework and you would enter a variable. So you might have your opener that's the same. You might have your CTA that's the same, but the center of the body, you're going to call it variable A. And then what you're going to do when you enrich it is you're just going to call also that column variable A. It's going to spit out a result for you based on the inputs you gave it, right? Like, you know, if company size is this, say that. If person is from here, say that. And then when you upload those leads to Instantly, it's going to take whatever is in that column and just input it right into the email. And that's how you can customize that scale. You just have to be careful with it because sometimes AI will still hallucinate. So it takes a while to build out because you got to be very careful so you get the right outputs. And that's also where a different comes in of like, you can personalize in two ways. You can do it where you give it 4 or 5 outputs, right? That say specific things just based on company size, location, whatever. Or you can have it fully done by AI where it gets a lot of freedom to do it. You get more variation, but you also run more risk of it making up random. That's not true. So it's kind of finding that middle ground. And then that's where the testing portion comes in, right? At the very end there, which is you start using data to see, are they performing well enough? Is it worth it? Do we pivot? Do we just take out personalization entirely? And the other tools we have, breaking it down. And that's where some of those firmographics are important. If we have company size, company location, time in existence, and we can start seeing, okay, companies that are actually like 10 to 50 respond by far the most. Companies that are this and this old end up converting the most. So having that data is actually very useful for us through Apollo because it kind of lets us discern and over time tighten up that lead list and make your targeting a bit better.